Well, I recently watched a news segment featuring the three most influential Black women in U.S. politics. Between them, they have decades of experience and tell stories of their unnecessarily slow climb to a sense of recognition and power. These are the women of the Sunday night Zoom calls that went to work, who've contributed their time, talent, and resources, devoted a significant portion of their very lives to the cause of the Democratic Party. Well, the interview gave us a peek into the ways they are processing the devastating loss of Kamala Harris to the now president-elect. Donna Brazile, political analyst and strategist, shared that a pivotal moment in her career happened after the 2016 election, when in my imagination, she sort of broke up with politics. She vowed, she says, at the time, to never let politics break her heart again. And I understand her. I understand her heartbreak. Hers is for sure deeper than mine. The many sacrifices she's made to rise to the top of her field, the many positions and opportunities she may have missed out in favor of mediocrity, the long hours, the losses. I get it. Heartbreak feels right to describe what happens when we hope and go on to lose. But the shift to not letting politics or anything else have that kind of space in one's heart feels significant. So this time around, she was prepared for whatever would come. Her heart, her spirit this time around was not broken. Each of the women spoke about faith as a grounding and stabilizing force in their lives, something they could not live without. One even said that she never leaves home without hope. They quoted spirituals and called on the voices of ancestors and freedom fighters, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth. We will know by and by, they said. We shall not be moved, they said, as they continue the work now of listening for what they have to learn, for what's next, for how they'll move forward. They're listening now for what is true. Perhaps what is true is the revelation of blind spots and biases. Perhaps the truth is an acknowledgement of a growing sense of apathy amongst the party's constituents. Whatever it may be, they're listening for the voice of truth. Their conversation and the concept of truth were on my mind as I considered today's gospel reading, and as we are given a glimpse into Pilate's first in-person encounter with Jesus. So it's early morning, perhaps the sun has not quite risen yet, and Pilate, the former soldier turned politician under the thumb of the Roman authority, has been sent to negotiate the space between Jesus and the religious officials, to navigate that space between the leadership who reject and oppose him with no uncertain terms, and Jesus, the insurrectionist. This is absolutely a political scene. So now I choose to remember, and I'll share this, that I choose to remember the portion of Matthew's version of Pilate's journey that includes his wife. I can't read anything about this without remembering her dream and the sharing of it with Pilate. And I say that because during that time, dreams were significant. People paid attention to their dreams. Her words have nothing to do with that righteous man. I suffered much in a dream today because of him. She said that he was innocent. So I hear her testimony as an important part of Pilate's journey toward personal revelation of his personal wrestling with what is true. Because we know that part of our knowing and coming to understanding of Jesus is almost always wrapped up in the people around us, something they've said, something that has happened in their lives, something you've witnessed. But in this moment, he's concerned with showing allegiance to Caesar, and with that, by any means necessary. Additionally, as the face of Roman control, Pilate's worried about the potential for chaos brought on by protests. So no doubt he is insecure and vulnerable, but more importantly, he's faced with Jesus, the one who immediately names his insecurities and goes on to teach him about the King and his kingdom of love, life, and liberation, one that centers community and, more importantly in this text, truth. Jesus says we've got to listen for the truth. Our very brief text ends with Jesus' naming of truth as the reason for his existence. He came to tell of it, to vouch for it, and goes on to say that those who belong to the truth, who care about the truth, would listen to his voice. So how is Pilate being called to listen? What would keep him from hearing? His entrenchment in the cycle of empire? Yes, for sure. His financial security? Absolutely. Can you hear his questions? Who are you? What does who you are mean in this moment? What does it mean for me? What is this truth? We don't know the fullness of Pilate's story, but we see here that he'd been given a unique opportunity to begin the process of listening to and discovering the truth. Sadly, when Pilate hands Jesus over, it's not because he believes Jesus is guilty. That's just not it. It's because he's given up on the truth. The truth we know for him, but also for us, we know the truth is a lot of work. Our nation's history is shrouded in a web of untruths. And what is true seems not to be considered essential. In fact, to lie in an age of quick and easily dispersed information is a pretty powerful strategy. Make it up, deny, lie. The next cycle of news will have passed before they catch up with you. Well, Pilate is caught up in a similar system where what is true is ignored in favor of what is convenient. We leave him today in what feels like a space of quiet sorrow and struggle, sitting with his thoughts, his many questions, primary of which is what is truth. And that'll come next in the following verses. But for now, Pilate is unwilling to stand for truth. Truth isn't easy, it's costly. Truth demands something Pilate isn't willing to give up. I wonder if you're experiencing this sense of quiet, your own sense of this sense of tuning in all around you. After the initial conversations and speculation of why and how, it seems we are entering into a space of opportunity to, beyond political parties, enter the wisdom of a pause, primarily personal, but also collective. It feels like a time for the practice of breathing deeply, and we all need that. In the pause, we admit that we don't know, and I love that, because hesitation, the admittance of a lack of certainty, means we're ready to faithfully enter a process of discernment. Perhaps finally we'll begin listening for the truth. This, we all know, is a time of eyewitness accounts and ethics reports, of confirmation battles and court cases. This is a time of war. Our current quote-unquote polycrisis includes the crisis of truth. Is truth a singular thing, a singular voice or force? Can truth be manipulated? How do we communicate about universal and enduring truths without fighting? Will our search for truth lead us to a common destination, a common location? Is there a singing line through all of it, through truth, that resounds for all of us? As believers, our North Star, our truth, our King, if that is the term we choose to use, is Jesus. But it is left to us to understand that what Jesus speaks of goes beyond this title, that the call is to push to see beyond the language of monarchy. for it does not speak to all peoples, nations, and languages. The language of monarchy does not serve all well. We have understood the word king, but Jesus is more than that. He is the Son of the Ancient One. Above all, we're to hear Jesus' call to truth. And so, our worship of Jesus as King is only good or worth it as we're able to give life to it, to give the truth hands and feet, to apply it as principled and purposeful action. Jesus calls us beyond the church walls to participate, to engage in an active faith, one that honors the life and death of Jesus, the only figure we should look to as we make our way inch by a painstaking inch forward. I am not a king, I am king, he says, over different kinds of kingdom. He's a king over a different kind of kingdom, a kingdom, as it were, one that centers life, love, and liberation, that seeks justice and the common good. But I want to remind us, especially now, when it doesn't look or feel like it, that the movement of love is alive, and that what we can live into it with hope and a sense of present joy in spite of what's going on. By and by, as the women said, we will survive. Their story, the one I shared earlier about the post-election conversation of these three Black women in politics, offered a window into their thoughts at this pivotal moment in history. Their transparency helps us to see their process, how they move. We get to see what posture they'll inhabit when the work remains as yet and is still unfinished. And this is a good thing because it encourages us forward. But know that what they've shared is only a fragment of the work that's being done on the inside, in the quiet hour, when they connect deeply with themselves and their God, to have that kind of internal conversation. They encourage us toward deeper levels of discernment, to seek our own encounters. My sermon today propels us a bit forward to an imagining of Pilate after his encounter with Jesus, with him wondering and questioning about what happens after his response to this experience. Unfortunately, the biblical text doesn't give us a clear answer on the remainder of his journey. But from what we can gather, it seems that Pilate is convinced of Jesus' innocence. He doesn't believe he's guilty, and seems to entertain the belief that he is this king. He doesn't, however, use any of his power or influence to interrupt the forces that conspired to kill Jesus that day. Still, what we see is him trying to process the fact of Jesus as king. He seems to want to understand. So despite the fact that Pilate concedes to avoid a riot, which would make him look bad, I wonder if this encounter marks for him that deeper level of discernment, or at least the beginnings of it. How do we think he moved forward from this experience? Does he care about or have any new feelings about what is true? It is fitting that at the end of the church year, we're left with these questions and with this reminder, with Jesus as King, as truth. But as we've made our way through this story, even considering all that has transpired this year, this calendar year, now is the time to review our experiences and sit with the questions for ourselves. Where are we? Does the fact of Jesus' kingship disrupt anything in our world? And if it doesn't, what will we do about it? What posture will we inhabit? This morning, we mine the scriptures for what it speaks to our current struggles. For sure, we're being called to another way, to something different. Something is stirring, and there are things we need to hear and understand. This morning we sit with the Ancient One and the love sent to the world as the offspring of that goodness. And we decide for ourselves just who will be our guide, our sage and wise warrior, our leader. We'll end in silence, reflecting on these questions. And so just return to that quiet space of listening and go inside for yourself. Where do you find your truth? Where is your amen? Are you listening to and for that voice?